Welcome to the far distant future. I haven't watched the old footage, and I don't know exactly what I covered in that, but if you've seen any, it's been about 8 or so months since I touched the Mars hopper. I got really just burnt out painting very tiny details by hand, trying to add little greebles here and there on everything, and it just got really tiring. And so took a long break, and I just yesterday finally decided I'm gonna finish this damn thing. So a lot of the stuff that I went over that I've already done, I'm gonna show you in the next part, because this is mainly about putting it together, and I need to put it together before showing that to you. It'll make sense, trust me. I just want to show you the inside before I seal this thing up and the problems that are happening here. We have all the wires, as you can see, with my wonderful wiring scheme. It's messy, yes. We got the left half here. I put on the sides, and then eventually we're going to seal it up. Now, I want to point out a few problems that I had, so hopefully you won't have them. First of all, you really can't see in here well, but this huge crew area, you have to slide that in one half of the domes. And I've said it before, Pegasus has a real problem with their mounting pegs. They put too few of them and they're too small. This entire thing, perfect example, you can see right here, if I can get it in camera, that is mounting peg. And there's supposed to be another one here that broke off at some point during the build. And there's matching ones on the other side, which ironically the same one I broke off at some point. And then it slides, if you can barely see it, there's a little bit of a shelf in the back there, if you can see that. That's all that supports this entire thing. So you put it in there, and it's on 4 tiny pins, and it's got a little lining up shelf in the back. This should be a solid block of metal or plastic to support this thing, but no, this is all you get. So be careful of that. Then we line up all the sides, which is a huge pain in the ass. This bottom part here, I'm going to add a little bit extra support because there's no shelf here on this side to make sure it lines up flush with the door, so it can kind of get pushed in at some points. I added a big old ass window here to run the wires through, and hopefully for the bottom it won't you know, it could be a little bit more working room, which is actually a good thing I did. I kind of needed that because that's going to help me get on the inside and keep this thing flush. And right now this side's gluing, so that's about it. And then you put the top on, which I've already done once, thank goodness, because that helped get this in position. And dear God, trying to seal up an entire ball while trying to match pins, you know, if there was 2 here, and slide this all together, it's going to take a long time. The first time I did it, I managed to get it in without breaking this pin, and then it's going to be a matter of slowly fitting every single pin in place, you know, until everything's fitted. That's going to take the rest of the day. Just gluing this thing is going to take a whole evening. Now, I'll go ahead and show you this, because mainly you're not going to see it again, because I'm about to seal this sucker up. I probably should have waited and done more of this work while it's in pieces, but I really needed the visual encouragement of putting this thing finally together. So we saw our wires here, quite a big mess. This back here especially, I should have done these in series or something, because this is a ridiculous amount of wires. But I'm going to wire all these together into bigger groups, and that's eventually going to attach to the big old mounting braid that I have coming out of the ship, and then we'll finally marry these together. I wish I had, oh, maybe I do. I really want to add plugs, if for some reason, just so I can just plug it together without trying to wire everything at once and seal this up. Hopefully all that seals with no problem. But that's the situation we're in right now. So I am going to seal this up now, pray everything lines up, and then I'll start talking about the final weathering and detailing work. Well, here we are. It's finally almost completely together. Yes, I lined up all the parts, glued the top half to the bottom half. All the wiring is done. A lot of it was just awkward, hard to show, putting the actual process putting it together. The top and the bottom didn't go together perfectly, but it went together better than I thought it would. I was expecting to be screaming and yelling, but it mostly lined up. There's a little bit of a gap here and there on the bottom, which I can't fix. But you're really not going to notice with everything else going on with the model. I did glue it together. I still have weathering to do, which I really should have done first, but I just wanted to have some obvious visual progress, because doing very small details gets really tiresome after a while. So that's what we're working on right now. I had, before I put it together, I gloss coated it, but I used Model Master Acryl gloss coat, which I'm not even sure they still make this stuff. But it gave it a very subtle satin sheen, which really added some life to the white, because there's so many coats of white on here. It's looking very dry and dirty, and this just adds just a little bit of sparkle to it. I'm so glad I decided out of the blue to try this rather than my standard gloss coat. Was contemplating actually putting a gloss coat on it at all, but we have to do the enamel wash, and since it's white, that gets stained really easy, so we do need a gloss coat on it for that, and also to do the decals eventually, which we'll get into. For the panel lines, I'm using mostly some Ammo by MIG medium gray panel line wash, and for some of the darker areas we're using the deep gray. And the process is just touching it to an area and letting the wash flow, and then wiping it off with a whole bunch of Q-tips, cotton swabs, excuse me. And somewhere in this mess of a desk, I have some odorless thinner, because like I said, it is white. It is going to get stained very easily. So that's the process we're on now. If I know it's hard to see with the white. The panel line wash is very subtle. I don't want to go too much. I don't know if you can see any here, but this area is already done. Once we're all done, I'll get some better pictures. But as I said, we are doing it very subtle. The thing is, with the lines on here, a lot of them are beveled, which don't take the wash real well, and then some are like 90-degree cuts. So some there's a good line, some there's not. I got to go back and redo some of this because it was a little bit messy. But finishing this half, and then tomorrow hopefully I can do the other half and some other bits. And then what else do we have to do? Decals, some other odds and ends. Still have to put in the window. Zoom back out. I was just going to stick it in, but then I decided no, I'm going to do the extra work, and we're going to paint the edging here so it matches the frame, the dark German gray frame. So I have to mask all this off. I did it once and then I did it wrong, so I have to redo it completely. Need to get some polish for my window. I had some brass polish that I used, which scratched it up a little bit too much, so I need some finer wax, car wax polish to clean that up, and we'll get that installed. But we are getting close to the end, and then I still have to work on the base. Forgive the shaky cam, but I wanted to show you a close-up of some of the details on the model, and this is going to be your only chance, more than likely, because it's so big. But I wanted to show you the decals and the panel line wash. The main issue with the panel line wash is there's not really any panel lines on this kit. All these right here are either corners of pieces, or a lot of them are beveled, so they're more angled like that. So they really don't take the panel line wash very well. So my results were a little spotty. It was more like just dirt in grooves than, you know, really making those panel lines jump, which I'm okay with, but you may want to skip this step. Like, it's optional, I just wanted a little bit more detail on the model and to do something more with it, because it seemed like it was just, if I didn't do it, it wouldn't be right. So I wanted to show you that. Secondly, this mess here, and I got mess everywhere, and I got decals and decals and decals and decals all over the place, because I'm decaling the hell out of this model. The sheet it comes with, there it is. Well, this is half of it. You get a couple for the inside, and then a few like American flag and 2 big red 5s there. I've added a ton more decals, little warning signs, various numbers. It's very asymmetrical. I don't have the same on each side, but I did my best just to detail it out and give it a little color, which I think makes it pop a bit more. So that's going to make it a lot more just interesting. I could keep going, but I'm going to stop because I don't want to overdo it. But I kind of wanted to make it look like a jet that just covered in decals. So a lot of these are from military kits, and other decals. There's some Machine Gear Krieger in here, and you may recognize, if it's coming out on camera, what that's from and what that is from. But there we go. So that's it right now. I'm just finishing up the decal work. I do have some silvering problem. I was really hoping with the gloss coat, which wasn't that glossy, would be enough, but the white is a little bit rough. So there's a little bit silvering here and there. I don't know if it comes out on camera. Few coats of Microsol hopefully can fix that. Otherwise, we are, kind of stuck with it at this point. Usually silvering it would be more likely over a dark color than a light color. But I'm going to finish the, what are we going to do? We're going to put the window in very soon, and we're almost ready to work on the base. All right, one more update just to show a few issues that I had last minute, and also, once again, sorry for the shaky cam. Best way I can show you everything. Wanted to point out the window because there's issues here if you're building this kit yourself that you're going to run into. The window issue, which I already knew about, and I figured out kind of how to fix it. But the issue is, if you put the window in, there can be a huge gap going around the window. And the reason that is because if you're supposed to, according to the instructions, build the entire window and then push it in, which I didn't do, because it's got to go behind this lip and it's got to go behind this lip. So I didn't see that happening, so I put it in parts and then sealed it around. If you build it first and push it in, you're going to have a big gap on probably the top, because if you notice here, it's kind of hard to see. I don't know, I can't see it on the viewfinder very well, but I have a big gap here, and I have an even bigger gap here. So the side piece and the top piece aren't actually connected. And if I was to put this together and then put it in, this would be lower, and then I would have a large gap. But I don't have, I have a gap here instead. And at this late stage, and also because I did paint this German gray, you really can't see it. It doesn't really stand out, so I'm going to leave that there. So you may want to build your window in pieces rather than building in one piece and sliding it in. Secondly, we're on second so far. I think there's 3 issues. The wires here that I added, they're supposed to go here and here. They don't give you a hole for this one. You probably want to drill that before putting the foot in place. It's the same on all of them. The problem with this one, though, is especially if you buy the Paragraphics photo etch set, they don't tell you not to put the wires in, because you have this little thing, the photo etch stand and ladder is supposed to go there, and you really can't fit the wires in very well, at least not in the regular position. I'm going to move them on this one so they're further back rather than being all the way up in the front. So I just have to shorten them. Also, you can't see back there, but there's holes for the wires on the back landing gear, but as far as I can tell, I can't see in there anywhere. I don't see any holes to put the wires in back down there. So I'm still contemplating what to do with that, because I tried gluing them in, but they don't really hold that well. So I may have to try to drill some holes closer to the bottom. And then finally, the ladders. The pair graphics set comes with ladders, but they are so ridiculously delicate, I'm not bothering. I'm using the ladders that came with the kit itself, and hopefully you have a bender, which makes it a lot easier. But I also bent the ends, so there's a little bit more area to glue onto the model. This little one goes here, and then there's a larger one that's gonna go down here. The larger one, they actually don't show anywhere in the instructions where it goes. I saw one build that has it off to the side, which makes no sense, but I'm gonna do it here, which is where the pair graphics one went. Okay, that's it, on to the base.
Oh, sweet information superhighway! What gem bring you me from the far reaches of cyberspace?